Hey, hey everybody, we think we're live.
We're live.
Hello. We know we're a little early. You know our routine. I'm going to share this link into Facebook and all of that stuff. And Amanda's going to chat with you while I do that.
Hey everybody, welcome back. So here we are for our third installment of. So we missed last week with you. Our apologies, my apologies. I'm the one who was out ill, so I had to my own advice and follow my own lessons and practice what I teach.
And I was really glad that you did, because it's important that we, are embodying what we talk about.
Yes. Yeah. And so I needed the break. I had a flu, which I wasn't surprised that I got, because I was so overextending myself up until, the time when the flu came. We had some guests here visiting from Mexico. So everything was disturbed in my house, my sleeping routine, whatever. And even at one point through that, I could feel it. And I knew I was pushing myself and overextending. But by that point, I didn't have the mental capacity to actually do something about it because I'm already too overwhelmed. And,
Right.
That
Right.
saying, like, she who prepares to fail, or no, she who fails to prepare fails.
Is prepared to
to fail. Like,
I don't know the right.
yeah, like you get the point, right? So I hadn't put things in place to protect myself, protect my energy, knowing that I was going to be outputting so much more. And then what I'm saying is that once you're in the thick of it, sometimes it's a little too late. So I pushed through and then literally got the kids on the plane back home to Mexico, the kids that were staying with us. And the next day woke up and had a cold or flu. And I had some other big responsibilities that week. I had that vagina monologue.
Oh, yeah.
Which thank you so much for those of you who came. And I had to be well for that,
Yeah, and we needed you on the stage for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And something I was sharing with my membership today was that, we often feel like we have to do things, and I'm always reminding people that that's actually not true. We have choice in everything, right? So this is one of those examples that I have to do it. I might feel like I have to, right? But we always have choice. We don't have to do anything. I chose what I wanted to do, what was important to me. And for me, I had to be at the vagina monologue because I chose to be there. I wanted to be there. So I pushed pause on everything else so that I could be. And
I talked about, like, we had chatted about, I should just come on and do our shine as scheduled, because we also really believe in consistency. And when we tell you we're going to do something, we want to make sure that we do that, right? Like, follow through is really important. But I realized it felt so wrong to do this without Amanda. I'm on camera a lot by myself, and people are often, I'm sure, well, maybe not. I was going to say they probably get sick of me just talking.
I mean, I don't think that, but
that's probably not, that's probably a limiting belief that I'm going to let go of now. But I thought, like, shine is the two of us, and I can't do it without. So I'm really glad that everybody was so supportive of us not being on last week. And I'm so glad that you're all here. I can see that some people are watching. I don't know if you are able to find the chat box. Please, comment, let us know that you're here so we can say good morning to you. I'm still having some tea, but Amanda's been up for like a whole day at this point.
So. I got up, both my husband and I woke up around 2:30, and I got up. I was waiting as long as I could so I didn't piss off my neighbors. I wanted to get out there and shovel the driveway because I really love to be outside when nobody else is awake. It's like my favorite thing to do.
Yes.
So I went out around 4 and I started to shovel, and then I was like, oh, don't do that. You're going to be like, who's shoveling? So anyway, so yes, I've been up a long time.
So you probably saw in our description today, we wanted to pick up the thread a little bit from what we talked about last time, because it has been a little bit of a longer break. And Amanda's just updating her groups to let everybody know where to find us. So to recap quickly, last time we were online, hello, Selena. Selena says to get to the chat box, they have to switch to desktop view on your mobile device. So if you have a mobile device, Selena, you're amazing. Thank you for saving us all. Switch to desktop view so that you can get to the chat box. Thanks for that, Selena.
Yeah.
So awesome. A couple of weeks ago, we were talking about the awakening and how it can be lonely and how often we wind up isolated. And we did touch briefly on the idea that when people move out of your life, create space for more people to come back in. But we didn't really talk about how that happens.
Yeah. And I just want to say too that we got so much feedback on that video, both of us, just so many messages about like, yeah, thank you.
It's true.
Thank you for saying that, because that's how I was feeling. And I just want to say that made me so happy to know that, you know, we're touching people and that you're not alone, right? That's part of why we're here.
It was
with
really
you.
powerful to hear from people. Someone reached out to me and said to Amanda and I that she was scrolling by on her social media feed and saw our video and, you know, accidentally stumbled upon us, and that it really, she didn't quite say it saved her day, but it was really that kind of a feeling. So thank you for reaching out if that's you, because we aren't really always sure about how these videos are landing. How much impact it's having. So it means a lot to us when you reach out and say. And
when we know what lands, it gives us our jumping page of where to go next, right? Or our spot to where to leap to next. So that's why we're leaping here, because this landed so well with so many of you, this loneliness feeling. And then the question we got on the other side was, okay, well, now what?
Hey, Jenny, good morning. It's so great to have you here.
Jenny.
So we wanted to talk about that.
So now
what do you do when you wind up alone? And often, in my practice, most people who come to their awakening are dealing with depression at the start of it. Is that true for you too?
I would actually say that for me, it's more people working with anxiety.
Okay.
So yeah, more like we've talked about that.
Yeah.
You know, the depression is like the living in the past, right?
Yeah.
And then the anxiety, living in the future, and the cure to both being present. Right?
But relating to their awakening, they come to you in anxiety.
Well, yeah, like I mean, that's like most people who come to me, I would say, are there because they're anxious.
So what I was going to say about the depressive state, though, is that depression lies to you. And it tells you to claw back into yourself. And it really, like, I'm thinking about the most recent layer of my awakening, because I hate to tell you, it's not a one-time thing, right? Sorry, I hope I didn't just ruin anybody's day.
Way to go, Michelle. No, unsubscribe. What?
It's not just a one-time thing, right?
No,
like,
we're still
you are an onion, and there are many layers to you. Like, if you cut in half of an onion, you can see all the layers, right? We don't want to cut you in half and see if we can see all your layers, but the idea is the same. So when I was in my most recent round of awakening, recognizing a lot of truths that I had to give voice to, I became very depressed. So that was 2010. And I really withdrew into myself. I pulled out of community. I pulled out of my family, like my immediate family who I lived with, as well as my larger extended family who are amazing, beautiful, loving people. But I pulled back in, and I lost a lot of friendships, and, you know, you retreat, which doesn't help you to grow.
And I can relate to that, to retreating, for sure. And I wouldn't have labeled it as that, as depression. Because for me, my mind is more like, I'm afraid to grow. I'm afraid of what if I go and I have this new level or this new initiation and I've outgrown them all.
Yeah.
Like that's,
and we try to block that,
feel.
right?
And I
like
try to block it. I'll
movement.
stunt it with like numbing patterns and numbing behaviors.
Right. And
like,
we talked about that last time.
Yeah. I feel myself, I don't know the word to use. The word that came to mind was elevate, but I don't know if that's really the right word. But I feel myself going into a new space.
You evolve.
Yeah, evolve. Thank you. And I recognize that that's happening, because now that, you know, I've been through it many times over here, I can recognize the signs when it's starting to happen for me, when I'm crossing over into a new place. And I get scared because, you know, then I look to the past and think, well, I lost people when I did that, or I don't want to lose this people, or I don't want to have to move.
But at some point, you come to that place where you recognize you're losing yourself.
Yeah.
And Selena has commented that here in the chat. She says desperation was the impetus of her awakening. She had nowhere left to turn. And, you know, that when I mentioned that most recent layer of my awakening, where I had to address a lot of fundamental truths. And I also had to face a lot of fundamental lies that I was telling about myself. So anyway, I don't want to get like too deep back into that, because we already covered the awakening.
Yeah.
But where do we grow to? How do you find more people? One of the things that really shifted my perspective was when I heard about the law of averages. And usually people think about that as like a scientific and mathematical concept, but it's also a spiritual premise that says you are the sum of the 5 people you spend the most time with.
Yeah.
So community becomes really fucking important.
It sure does. It sure does. And you've got to then put yourself out there to go find your people and allow yourself these new places where you can stretch your wings, you can stretch your awareness, you can stretch your growth, right? Yeah. And that's like what Selena said, like desperation. Like I saw a meme today that's like, change happens when you're just so tired of your own stuff, right? Like, so when you really feel that push that you just can't, so where do you go? What happens? Love you too, Jenny.
Where do you go? So you have to get outside of your comfort zone.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really difficult when you're dealing. So when I was dealing with depression, I was also dealing with panic and anxiety. So fear of the past and fear of the future, like the total definition of being stuck, right?
Right.
So it's very difficult when I was in that state to go out into new places and do new things. But because that becomes comfortable, right? At least I can predict what I'm going to feel here, which is awful. But if I go out there, I'm going to feel awful and embarrassed, or awful and afraid. Yeah. Or
and maybe I don't have the wherewithal to be there. Maybe I don't have the tools to be there. Like maybe I'm not awakened enough to be there. Right? Like
what are they going to think of me?
Yeah, like sometimes before women's circle, someone will write me who's never been there before and be like, well, I don't know anything about anything. Like, what do I need to know to come? Like, what do I need to wear? Honestly, truly, like people, for those of you who are comfortable in these circumstances or these situations, think back to the first time that you ever came to circle or you ever went to your first spiritual event where you're coming in and you think you're a novice and that maybe you don't belong there yet. But of course you do, right?
Of course you do.
And we've got to make our way into these spaces. So that they become the new normal for us.
And, normally we would ask a friend to come with us, but we've just identified you're lonely. You've pushed all your friends away.
Yes.
So who do you ask to go with you? You have to ask yourself and you have to go. Amanda's Wellness Circle is an amazing place, but for a lot of us, it's really difficult to get out face to face with people, which is why we both created online communities, which is why we do like these online videos. And, we also have membership programs where we cultivate your comfort level.
Well, and speaking about the online, this is a place where you can start, right? This is why I like offering online. Like when I first started in my practice, I really was into like community in-person places. And I still am. I love my circles that I run. They mean so much to me. Gathering, I know, means so much to you.
There's nothing like being face to face.
There really isn't. But I recognize somewhere along the way, there has to be like these bridges for people. And not everyone is ready to come out into that space. So stuff like this is a good starting point where join the conversation, maybe give your opinion here where you feel safe, behind your computer screen. Stretch, give yourself those little places where you can start to experiment with being around new people.
For sure.
Yeah.
And practicing what you're learning. Places where you can share a technique that you tried, or where you can say, I'm feeling really vulnerable because I took the advice and I did X, Y, and Z, and then this happened. And now what do I do?
And this, you know what? I just want to bring up a point from our first video. This brings us back to the point, like, you can't get it wrong. You need to come and practice. You need to come and see what it feels like. You got to get your hands in the sage. You got to get, yourself in a community and see what it feels like. And that fear of getting it wrong, right? Like I said, someone writing to me, this just happened, not this circle, the last circle, because they were coming from work and they were afraid that their vibe would ruin what I create there because they were going to be in a business suit. Truly, she was afraid to come because she thought she was like too professional for us
as you are,
right? You were just saying that before we went live.
As I want you to be. It's Radio Michelle. Yeah,
come as you are, man.
Just be. And that is, Selena has commented here about breaking out of the social constructs. And we are trained to wonder, what are people thinking about us? Oh my God, I don't fit in here. I don't belong here. They're all looking at me. But the reality is, and I've seen this a lot.
No one cares.
When I am looking around a room, it's not because I'm judging people, deciding whether or not they deserve to be there. I'm looking around the room, trying to see if I see somebody like me. So if you are sitting in a room and you feel like everybody's watching you, it's because everybody's looking for someone who's just like them.
Yeah.
And when you notice that, this is the hardest part. This is how you get into true soul connecting relationships again, is saying to that person who you think is staring at you, hi, I've never been here before.
And then they're going to say, me neither.
Oh my God, me
Thank
too.
God.
What's your name? I'm Michelle. And you start by taking that first step.
Yeah.
And you can make those posts in online groups. Like here in the description, we've linked to the Facebook groups that we both moderate. You can make those posts in those groups and say, hey, I'm new here. What do I need to know?
Yeah.
And people, you would be amazed at the stuff that people will tell you.
And this is why I always say to people who private message me with a question, you know, oh, can I share this? Or in my membership group, I say to them, like, I make a video every week, and I say to them, if you have a question, do me a favor, ask it in the group. Because if you're asking the question, you can bet somebody else is too. And we're all afraid of looking stupid or not knowing enough or getting it wrong.
Yes.
Meanwhile, there's an army of people out there hoping someone else raises their hand because they're too afraid to.
Yes.
So right in that little example, you get to do so much practice of so many different things. You get to practice showing up for yourself. You get to practice using your voice in a safe space.
Yes.
You get to practice being a leader for others. You get to practice being...
And if you answer the question that somebody else has posted, then you're practicing using your knowledge.
Right?
And then that knowledge and experience becomes wisdom.
What's Jenny say here? My biggest freedom has come from when I let go of what others think of me. I now show up full on as me, and it feels amazing. Absolutely
beautiful.
Jenny. And I really relate to that too. You know, and we touched on this before about like our old lives and our old stories and who we were and who we thought we had to be. And that's still something that comes up. Like we said, it never stops.
Yeah,
you know, it's still something that comes up for me. Who am I allowed to be? And then
we'll message each other.
You know?
Hey, are you going? Because I'm feeling X, Y, and Z. Oh, come, sister, I'll hold your hand.
Yeah, like networking, right?
Yeah.
Networking for me. Like, I mean, for those of you who go networking, you haven't seen this face out there in a long time. And it's, I wrote in my intentions last moon cycle, I literally put in there networking that like pulls me out of my comfort zone and puts me around new types of people because, you know, if I'm going to grow the business, I have to do that. I've got to stretch myself, right?
And then we got invited. So this is the power of intention.
Yes.
Then we got invited to a networking group that Amanda was like, fuck, I don't want to go networking. But not only was it was networking with women and men.
Yes.
Which is really, I mean, I work with a lot of men, but Amanda really targets women.
Yeah.
So for her, it was like super uncomfortable.
And it was like a really professional kind of environment, although lax and cool, you know, like very welcoming. It was still like a more
beautiful was that Amanda made like solid connections with a couple of men who she did not expect that they would get what she talks about.
Yeah, and they did, and it was great. But that's that example where I was going anyway,
right?
Because my friend who invited me, so I literally wrote back and went fuck. Because I was so pissed because I had just made the intention. So like I know I have to answer. Like I'm not gonna deny gifts from the goddess. I mean, hey,
no, that
the goddess sent me a gift, so I'm gonna say yes. But that was my response, you know, was fuck, now I gotta go. And then when Michelle told me she was going and our other friend, I was like, oh thank God. Thank goddess, I don't have to go by myself. Right? But I was gonna do it, you know, and it was so good for me.
Uncomfortable. You have to get uncomfortable. And you have to be willing to connect.
Yeah.
And you have to be willing to share your voice.
And be yourself, you know?
Yeah.
Like Michelle said, I didn't go in there. I thought about going in there with a preconceived speech, like an elevator pitch, because they welcome you to have an elevator pitch. And I thought about writing a strategic elevator pitch for the people in the room. And then I just didn't. And I went in and just stood up and spoke from my heart. And I sat down. My heart was racing. You wouldn't know that because, like, you know, I'm on camera a lot and whatever. But, you know, my friends who know me know I was sweating. My heart was racing. But I just spoke from my heart. And that allowed me to connect with those men in the room because I didn't write down what I thought they wanted to hear. I stood up and I said, this is uncomfortable for me. I'm not usually in places like this. You'll often find me barefoot in the forest with my drum, not at a business meeting, you know, but here I am and here is what I do. And it landed. Right?
Yeah. So a minute ago, Amanda was talking about her membership group where she posts videos and asking people to speak, like to ask their questions within the group.
Yes.
And in my membership group, I have the same thing now. I like my videos are daily for that 2.5 week period that we do that membership part for. But I really encourage people to answer the questions because, you know, we've touched on this. You have to practice knowing what you know.
Yeah.
But truly, the path to mastery, which is what your awakening is leading you to, is to mastery, is getting really comfortable with the fact that you're never going to know everything and that you're only going to know what you know when you know it. Which I know sounds really cyclical and silly, but that is the truth. It is the truest truth. And you only know what you know in the moment that you're in. But if you don't share what you know, you will never know more. And that is the hardest part for people to accept, that they think they have to know everything before they can take that first step forward. You totally will not ever know everything. No. Well, you will, but that'll be the moment that you die, and then you're like one with all of creation, and then
and just like you don't have to know everything. You don't have to. I mean, that translates into coming into those spaces, not just with sharing your knowledge. You don't have to be. I don't even know what words to use, but like fully awakened or a priestess goddess in order to come into, you know, where you think priestess goddesses live. Like,
and you know what I would tell you, those people are harder to work with because they think they know everything. And you can't know everything. And if you go into a space thinking that you know everything, that person is likely full of judgment of the people around them. Mm-hmm. They're judging me as the person who's leading the gathering. They are judging the other participants in the gathering for their views or perceptions. And it really clamps down on the feeling of welcomeness.
Yeah.
And really what I love about spirituality is just how open and welcoming it is. Mm-hmm. So don't be one of those know-it-alls who shuts out that welcomeness.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
I do. Like, I think how I would see it is like sometimes people will come into my space and maybe they really are well versed in shamanism.
It's not to say that they can't be well versed. Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes. But I know for me, whenever I go into a space, even though I lead pretty big spaces for women, when I step into someone else's space, like for example, Michelle's space or whatever, I'm there for me. Like I'm not there to prove that I know what I know. Right. I'm there to be open to learn what I don't know. Right. Does that make sense? You know,
that's a really
so
big
that people miss out. That's what I do find sometimes. Like someone will be at circle, maybe they also teach intentions. I'm gonna throw that one out there. Okay, maybe they also teach how to formulate intentions, and so they're listening, but they're not actually receiving. They're thinking about how they know more, perhaps. And maybe you do. I'm not saying you don't. I just know that I don't want to miss him on anything. So I'm always just like open to receive. When I go into that space and I'm not the leader in that space, I am completely open to receive because I want to know what I don't know.
And hey, like there are all times where, well, certainly for me, I can't speak for you, but for me, I've walked into a space thinking I know more than the person leading the room. And I never get anything out of those experiences because I've shut down.
Yeah.
So if you recognize that you're in that place where you think you know more, I would encourage you, I hope myself is listening to me, to take a deep breath in and to just be aware that that's a feeling that you're holding. There's a difference between a feeling that you're holding and a truth that you claim. Mm-hmm. So if I'm feeling like I know more, that is more open than claiming the truth that I know more than that person.
I feel you.
It's a totally different vibration.
Yeah.
So if you're going into a space where you think you know more than the person who's leading it, because first of all, you're doing that because it's probably going to make you feel a little bit more confident about what you know. What I would say is to take that vibration that you feel like you know more, so that you can be open to hear what they have to say.
And I'm reflecting on how we're talking about the two opposite ends of the spectrum again. So the person who's too afraid to step into the space because they don't think they're good enough, they don't think they're far enough along in the journey, and then the person who's done a lot of collecting. Like that's where, when I see that, it's like someone maybe that's done a lot of collecting of information, but perhaps isn't using it or isn't working with it. So that's the other end of the spectrum where they're not open to receive what the teacher in front of them has to say. Like, look at us. We go to each other's stuff all the time. And when Michelle comes to Circle, she comes as a guest who's there to receive when she comes to Circle. When I go to Michelle's events and I'm there to learn, I've signed up with her for a reason because I want to learn from her. Yeah.
And I think and I'm getting into a rabbit hole. I was going to say, like, the beautiful part of the kinds of spaces that we create we recognize that we don't know everything. Right. So we invite people to share what they know that is maybe different than.
Well, and then that's like, if you look at gatherings, so that's Michelle's gathering that happens on Sundays at 10, right? 10:30? 10:30. And gathering is a conversation.
Right.
Michelle, leads the conversation and offers suggestions and questions to probe and to open our minds more, but it's a collaborative experience. Women's Circle, I bring in an expert, right? I don't teach Women's Circle every time. I do it once a year, twice a year, and I host my own events, but when I have a circle, I'm bringing someone else in to bring their expertise and wisdom to our circle. And again, it's a cooperative collaboration experience where everyone's having, some input and we're listening and we're learning.
Yeah. So to circle back to the title of this video, because we're at 26 minutes now.
Okay.
We're trying to keep these to 20 minutes, I thought.
Yeah.
Maybe half an hour, we said. Anyway, how do you find these people? You have to go out there. Either online in the communities. We've linked to our communities. Amanda has a subscription group that's called Rise
Member Circle. Yeah.
And you walk us through like the states of the moon. I'm a member of this group because it's like highly informative.
Thank you, Michelle.
No, really, I mean that. I don't just say that because I love you.
I know.
It's highly informative.
Love you too, and thank you.
You're welcome.
It's like I love the circle that we do. Yeah.
So people can find your membership. Is it on your business page?
That's a great question.
Okay, so you're going to join her Facebook group and she's going to drop the link in there.
No, it's in Rise for sure.
Okay, and my membership group happens once a month. It goes from the new moon to the full moon. And we set intentions for what we want to gain from our life. And then we have a couple of ceremonies for release. And that's the Spirited Healing Journey. You can find out more about that at HTTP. You have to do all that part, the HTTP part, //journey.spiritedhealing.ca. That starts on Saturday. Now, Amanda, yours is ongoing, right?
Mine's ongoing, yeah. So mine's $35 a month, and that gets you that in-person circle. And the reason why I did that, I know not everyone's going to always come to circle. A lot of people ask me about that because I have members that are in the States as well and things like that. But it's just because everything in life's an invitation, right? So that's an invitation for you to come out. And what I've found so far, we're about, 2 cycles in now? And so the women started by dipping their toes in the group online, and 2 of them have now come out to circle, and it's the first time they've come out of, we joke, out of that woo-woo closet and into the world and said like, oh, hey, I identify here too, and so it's an ongoing membership, and I give a video a week. Actually, I just recorded ours before I got here.
There's a lot of value for that $35 because you also lead ceremony there, so people can get into the flow of what's going on around them, whether or not you're a local participant. And my program is international. There's people in Australia and India, across the United States, and of course locally here in Canada too. It's
and the intention, I think, for both of us is the same: is we want to give people a safe place to connect. And that's what.
And you know what else you could do? Like, if you want to find people, you could invite Amanda or I to come to where you are, and then promote an event, and then you'll find all the people who you actually connect with.
That's a cool idea.
That's the truth.
Throw a party.
That's the truth.
That's cute. I like that idea. Right? If you don't, I'm just thinking in my head. Well, so if you don't have them around you yet, throw a party.
Throw a party. Let's get them around you.
Yeah.
You connect because you create the space.
I love this conversation because I'm reflecting on the first few times I waded my way out into, the first few events I ever went to, and just, man, it was nerve-wracking. It's so long ago for you probably, but I'm only 5 years in.
No, man, the first time I went networking, so I'm going in a rabbit hole. The first time I went networking, which was for me, like, I feel like I kind of grew up in spirituality and woo because I was really raised in a family that was obviously religious, really devoutly Catholic, but also really believed in a personal relationship with their idea of God. So I've been comfortable talking about deep stuff for pretty much my life. But with that said, networking, the first time I went networking, I was so worried about what I was going to say that I wrote out my script, and then I used my phone and the voice memo, and I recorded me reading the script, and I would listen to the script like for days in advance. And then I practiced like saying it in front of the mirror, and like it's uncomfortable for everybody. Even if we make it look like we're confident. Honestly, an hour ago, we were sitting here on this couch saying to each other, so what did we talk about today?
Yeah. Both tired, well, I'm more tired than Michelle,
You just
do. And like I was sharing, like the first few events I ever went to, and I shared this at the Sound Healing Circle, so I'm sorry, it's like repetitive. But yeah, like I was terrified. I used to go to drum circles and I wouldn't bring my drum in.
Oh my God.
So I would go to a drum circle and I would sit there and I would like just basically sit on my hands, or I'd maybe tap my legs a little bit. And there's no way I was singing. There was no way. Right. And it took practice to get comfortable and to claim my space as who I am, not having to have it perfect, not having to know what the chakras were, like not worrying,
not even knowing you're supposed to say chakra. Everybody says chakra. Selena, thank you for that comment. You're my saving grace.
I love it.
We're so glad you guys are all here.
Yeah,
I feel like we could talk now for a whole other hour.
Yes, I know, and we got to go because I got a client.
But we're not gonna. So we'll be here. We'll be here next week. Or should we do another 2 weeks?
I don't know, maybe another 2 weeks.
Okay, 2 weeks from now we'll do this again. Somebody has made a suggestion of what they would like to talk about, so we will take a look at that. That's great. If you have suggestions about what you want us to talk about, please throw them at us, because I think we've kind of covered the majority of what we really wanted to talk about in the beginning here.
Yes.
Like, you can't get it wrong. This is what your awakening looks like, and how do you connect with people.
Lonely. This is how to, get yourself out of your stuck place and
now
out of the lonely.
So we need you to jump in and tell us what you want this spiritual social to talk to you about.
Yeah, we have a few other ideas. We talked about.
We do.
Yeah,
we do.
About ceremony and rituals. We've talked about
and
maybe
tools.
Doing that. Tools. Yeah, I think tools would be. Tell us if you like that idea. I think tools would be really
tools
valuable.
That we use and why.
Because that was part of like the whole worried about getting it wrong. Of like, what tools am I allowed?
Well, that's what you were just talking about with the drum. Okay, listen.
I'll stop. Yeah.
We're gonna stop now. Have an amazing day.
Yes.
Thank you for shining.
Thank you for being here, everybody.
Much
Lots of love. Bye.
Bye.